It was a fabulous idea. When you said you were going to do it, I was like giggling.
What are you talking about?
Everything.
Everything. I'm muted. Yep. Madeline's muting.
Hello, Graham.
Hello, Faith.
So, welcome back, everyone, to Tea at 3. I am Faye Schmidt, and this is Graham Kerr. Here we are again. Last week, Graham, you brought up the topic of a little bit of everything, kind of going back through everything that we've talked about throughout. This is our 22nd episode.
I think so, yes.
And so we've talked about a lot of things throughout all those weeks. And here we are to kind of see what of those topics has really stuck with us and like made a change in our lives.
Yeah.
And will continue to be a part of our lives moving forward. So here we are.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. So did you have something on the top of that list that you could say, yeah, that's made a difference. It's got some traction to it. Yeah.
I think for me, by far the biggest thing, and we have talked about it specifically a few times, is more the like pause and ponder aspect that this whole show is based off of. I've said this before, but I'll probably say that a million times. I've said this before because we're going over things that we've said before. I am not someone who by default seeks out I want to say news, but in general just like negative things happening in the world. And I tend to like be sort of the ostrich with the head in the sand and like do what I can in that regard and not like overwhelm myself. But throughout this process, it's given me a way, I feel like, to do that without overwhelming myself, being like taking it one piece at a time and like sitting down and thinking about that for a week. It's still hard every time because it's still not my default state. But it's been super helpful to have like once a week, you need to think about this thing and you're going to sit down and make a fool of yourself on camera. So like think about it, like actually think about it. And it's just been a really good motivation. And like the inspiration of having a conversation with you has just been, I've done more like sitting and thinking deeply about things in the last 23 weeks or whatever it is than I feel like I have largely in my whole life.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. Wouldn't it be really cool if we had an audience? Maybe we do. Maybe you're watching at the present moment and you too have begun to ponder things rather than knee-jerk. And if you are, then Faith and I both want to tell you that you make our lives worthwhile at the moment. We think it's special. So I would like to join you in that. Do you remember that episode really up front where we talked about a boulder being in the road on a mountain road and it stops you from being able to go? So you've got to stop. And when you stop, you get out and you can see there's a beautiful view there. And somehow, although you're frustrated by the fact that you can't move, there is still something pretty beautiful that you might have driven right past. That's the way I've been thinking about it. And so I see boulders dropping in my way every day now. I seem to be limited in the free flow of what I have been used to doing, right? Because of the constrictions which are happening. So that to me is inherently frustrating. I feel like saying, there's nothing else but rules all the way around, and I feel so constricted, and I want to burst out of that. But instead of that amazing initial reaction to the frustration of the boulder in the road, that I'm out of my car, I'm out of my particular life, just like you've been describing. And I've got a week between me and getting back with you again, to be able to ponder that boulder and look around me. I never noticed that view before. That's really cool. So I've been noticing really cool stuff in everything after the frustration. And I'm wondering whether that isn't available to everybody if they would just turn their head away from the obstacle and look at the possibility of seeing something that had otherwise escaped one. So that for me, I can't tell you, that's my kind of number one thing. You go next.
I think along with that, being able to take an overwhelming amount of information and like parse it down to an amount that I can ponder without getting overwhelmed. I think along those lines, being able to take overwhelming issues that we believe strongly in and don't always like know what to do about, and take like the little pieces of like choosing to be vegetarian for ecological reasons, like taking little choices like that and like using those to fuel yourself towards like a greater good. I think that's definitely something that has been hugely helpful for me in having a sense of hope about the future and about like seeing change in that way and knowing that I'm doing something about it and I can continue to do something about it, and we can all move forward, and not everything has to be this huge insurmountable boulder. Like we can take a pebble at a time and think about it and do something about it.
Good. That's in line with that first one with you. I am definitely affected by your idea of watering the plant and praying for your friends. So let's put it this way. Have you and I met once, but I can't remember that, and it's shocking of me, and I keep on groveling and asking your forgiveness for not remembering it. But my knowledge of you has grown over 22 months, 22 weeks rather. Do you trust me?
Yeah.
I trust you. Now, we did that through this screen and through all of this labyrinth of stuff, and where we wind up on the slippery slopes of YouTube. And we have a relationship, do we?
Yeah.
Would you call it? Yeah. And it only happened through the screen.
Mm-hmm.
So what's wrong with the screen? Nothing. The screen can allow the negatives of our day, which both of you and I are assailed with every day, and pours rubbish, absolute rubbish, through that screen. Of course, there are wonderful things in that screen too. I'm not kidding, but it pours into us, and we don't respond to that. We're trying to find a way to hold our head up above water and somehow make it. And this has helped you and me enormously. Now, with regard to your watering for your friends, I have been watering for Feliciana, who is a young lady who lives in Guatemala, and Noel, who lives in El Salvador. And the reason why I got involved with them is hearing the news saying that the United States was withdrawing support from those mid-American states. So then I pondered that. And in my pondering, I thought, why do I just knee-jerk? Why don't I do something about it? Because $38 a month, I can do some adjustments to my lifestyle and drop some of my attention to some of the things which may not be doing me that much good. So I can reduce the risk for me, and I could include Feliciana, and I could include Noel. I could actually include them both. So I started, and then you talked about watering the plant and praying for them. I had just been sending the money. Now, when I water my plant, the big thing that keeps growing all the time, I'm praying for them. It's not just the money and the tweaking of lifestyle, that's all quite humanist. But there's a love in me that can go beyond those measurable things into unmeasurable territory. And I don't know what that means. And so the other day, I think I showed you some time ago that my plant threw out another little spiking thing. And the second one has come out now. So that I realized that the one's called Noel and the one's called Feliciano. It's just added something beyond a potted plant to my life. That's been special. So what's next?
Yeah, I think along with that we have talked a lot about like motivations for the things that we do. And that was one of them, the conversation of nature brings me joy and friendships bring me joy. And I don't want to kill my houseplants. So therefore I am required to water them about every other day. And because I'm required to do that and it's something that brings me joy, then I'm like required to have something that brings me joy. And I'm reminded of the friendship, the person who gave me the plant.
Yes.
But those like exploring the motivations behind the things that we've done, I think has something that's just a really healthy and good practice to do. Like last week, we talked about taking care of our own bodies for the motivation of showing love to those who love us, like being healthy for them. In the same way, watering the plant, bringing joy, being happy for the people around us. And like all of these things are kind of settling down into a way that that all kind of leads up to trying to begin that ripple effect, you know, the living up to what we can do. What can we do to live up to what we believe in? And then beyond that, like how does doing that like begin to change the world?
Yes. Yeah. You know, that immediately brought back to my mind something that I don't think we've talked about before, which is that in Haiti, and I can't remember the date, but it was several years ago now, there was a massive flood. A whole mountainside gave way. It was in a place called Gonaive, and there was a hurricane went through, Hurricane Jean, and it rained heavily upon that mountainside that people have been pulling trees out to make charcoal to be able to cook over for 300 or 400 years. And eventually they had gone up the mountainside and pulled all the vegetation out of it until it rained on this day and the whole mountain gave way in one sickening squelch. And it ran down into Ghana. And I think there were about 2,400 people died on that day. I think that's the real. But it made me think at one stage that that's a habit pattern. They needed charcoal in order to be able to cook. And if you go and you get a tree and you bake that tree and you get charcoal from it, it's a perfectly natural process. But keeping on doing it in the same place without thinking about what that can mean is eventually so enormously destructive. So we can see that today. And it was as if I was standing on the bank watching people and buildings flooding past me in this thick, viscous, muddy mess like this. And I'm hanging onto this little tree and I'm reaching out towards this flood of mud. And there is this sticky, muddy hand reaching out towards me. And I'm grabbing it with all my strength, but it's slipping away from me as it's going. So I brace my feet against a rock or something there and get my second hand and get it underneath like this, yank it. And this slippery, messy person gasping is pulled up on the side. And I think, I got one! And somehow, when I do these tiny little things, it's like that. We are watching humankind being swept away at the present moment. Why? Just economy. It's natural. If you need it, you have to buy it. And And that's the way it is. And we're 70% dependent upon being consumers. That's the way it is. It's charcoal.
Mm-hmm.
We're just simply denuding the earth around us, and the earth at some stage will give way. It isn't, that's not the way it was made to be resilient. So, yeah. That for me is again being prompted by our conversation. You and I are trying to do very small things that seem so darned incidental when we watch this massive thing that's taking place. But one person can get out of it alive. That's important.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So we have both had a turn. So I looked at a couple of our videos in the comments to see not only what you and I have gotten out of this process, but to see what some other people have gotten out. So
good.
I'll read some here. This was season 2, episode 5. So this one says, again, this was a thought-provoking tea at 3, addressing how best to appropriate money and then how to consequently put it to good use by sharing some of it with someone in greater need. You, Graham, forfeited a lot in hopes of doing some good for others, then being rewarded by finding joy in it. And you, Faith, made good, unselfish decisions in your job choices. Perhaps all of us within earshot today will apply these testimonials to good use in our own lives.
Lovely.
Yeah. So that was when we were talking about value and money.
Yes.
We've gotten a couple of these sprinkled throughout, but there's a couple of people that are like, I've been vegetarian for like this many years and it's really changed my life, and it's really cool to like see you guys like going through that process too, and it's inspiring to like keep doing it. One that someone who has been, I think, watching most of our shows, Vegan Chef 75, said in season 2, episode 8, so 2 episodes ago, they said, I've been vegan for 26 years and have never been preachy to my friends and family. The ripple effect is real. Over the past several years, 1 brother-in-law, 2 sister-in-laws, and several friends have slowly transferred their eating habits to vegan.
Isn't it strange how we don't really realize that we're being watched?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, isn't it when we think we're being watched, it's a form of self-righteousness? We're doing the right thing and we're doing it in a certain way, and we just know that somebody's going to see that and do the same thing as us, and then that's the end of it. That's all there is. Is that like riding the bicycle? You know, when we first ride the bicycle without training wheels and without being hung on, we're very conscious of the fact that we're doing something amazing, and we want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, getting on a bicycle and riding it, we don't even think about somebody saying, wow, look at him balancing on 2 wheels. He's just a person on a bicycle. And that's the way that I'm beginning to think of it now. I must admit, when I made some major turnings in my life, I so wanted to be seen doing it. It seemed like a good idea, and therefore other people might do it as well. And I'm much less interested in that now. I just love the freedom of feeling that this is okay. Not that this is better than somebody else, but this is just okay for me. It just seems right. Yeah, I like that idea. So have you got anything for us to get into and ponder deeply for the week ahead? That was fun. I like going back over that.
Yeah. Okay, so you kind of, as with almost every time I've brought up a topic, at some point you end up saying something relevant to it, like before I get to the topic. You had talked about habits, and that as I was thinking this week, the word habit kept coming into mind, because so many of the things that we've discussed are either like trying to get rid of a bad habit or trying to develop a new good habit. So I thought that this week we could think more about ways in which we do that, ways in which we can work to get rid of a bad habit, or we can work to instill a good habit. Instilling good things in our lives is so important, because once the good things become the habit, then you feel so much better and you don't even think about like having to make that choice every day. So yeah, that's what I was thinking to think about for this week. Do you want to give a quick knee jerk to that?
How can you stop me? Yeah, I'll tell you what I would like to do. I know there are some things that I am not well disciplined at doing, and there are several that I'm not going to try and select anything right now, but I'm going to ponder and look for my lack of discipline. And then I'm going to take one of those issues only, and I'm going to try to find a creative alternative to being ill-disciplined by inventing, if you will, or innovating a new habit to take the place of the ill-discipline. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And just one.
We'll be putting the things that we've talked about into practice here with the like finding motivations for good things and taking bad things out of our lives in order to have good. So we'll be using the things that we've been talking about for this long and putting that into practice with specifically a habit of some kind, good or bad. All right. So that's what we will be thinking about this week and talking about next week. This has been Tea at 3. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Spaith Schmidt. This is Graham Kerr, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
And please remember, it is really meaningful for us when you guys leave comments down below. It's so wonderful to go back through them and see the things that have made an impact in your lives. Also, please, if you're not subscribed already, do so and like the video if you enjoyed watching. See ya.